We are on.
The coup d'etat of boxing back. The hammer and the sickle.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody.
The coup d'etat of boxing is back. It's been a while. Our communications network was unfortunately infiltrated and sabotaged by a whole raft of malicious viruses and spyware and ransomware. Official and myself, we backtraced the intrusions and it led us to a rogue outfit on the payroll of one Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Sports. Eddie is finally retaliating against all those real channels that have been exposing his fraudulent and clandestine operations. And he's determined to silence those channels, but fortunately, we're robust. We've reinforced all aspects of our security now. So, yeah, we'll be launching hypersonic missile attacks on all of these perpetrators very soon. But yeah, it's good to be back after a few months out. Certainly for me, but fortunately, official scorecard has been maintaining and re-establishing, and he's already delivered an extensive film study on Jesse Rodriguez. It's probably given all you guys brain damage for about a 3 hour film study served in between a can of tuna. And I'm going to make sure now that if Official delivers any more film studies, he's going to be on that Victor Conte snack diet. There's going to be no more canned meat for him. But how are we doing, Official?
Good, and my dog is certainly doing good as well since I stopped eating his tuna. Oh well, not bad. I'm here to discuss. Very happy to discuss with you boxing, to talk with you about Jesse Rodriguez and his fight. And there are a lot of interesting things to say. The things that I haven't even mentioned to you right before this show that may very well surprise you. And well, anyways, really wonderful to hear you again here, bro.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's pretty, it's a tough time for both of us. It's been a difficult period last few months, but hopefully we can. I keep saying it, but we'll try and maintain a regular schedule if we can. But coming back to tonight, it's going to be a short, technically succinct sort of breakdown, kind of a full circle journey, official, because we delivered a film study on Jesse Rodriguez. I think it was around 2 years ago. It was one
I
of our
think,
earliest videos.
yeah, it was, if not the first, the second episode of the Coup d'etat boxing.
There you go. You know, trust us to illuminate all of the brightest talents in boxing. Something I've been doing for 10 years. Um, so it was only logical that we come on tonight at a good time and after delivering the film studies and the fight taking place on in the early hours of Sunday morning. Well, on the west coast, it's very late for us, but Jesse Rodriguez stepping in on 5 days' notice. I repeat that, 5 days' notice. Did we hear any talk about him requesting an additional £200,000 and also stepping up in weight from flyweight to super flyweight in the absence of Srisaket Rangvisai? And it's a very good question as to what exactly happened to him. He flew into Arizona, picked up some illness. I don't think it's COVID related. It could be traveling sickness, something like that. But would you put it past Eddie Hearn for it to be something a little bit more malicious, or he was just trying to get Rangvisai out the way when Rangvisai became Cuadras' mandatory? It's ironic that the one person who has legitimately on the scorecards defeated Estrada recently would now not be his mandatory by virtue of the WBC elevating Estrada up to franchise, so not having to face his mandatory. And Cuadras and Sarisakat would fight for the sort of rescinded and downgraded WBC championship. So I'm not surprised if Eddie just wants to get Sarisakat completely out of the equation, and if he's going to have a round robin with all of these fighters and bring in Ray Martinez, who we'll talk a little bit about that fight later on. But in any case, official, what was your reaction when I think it was me who told you that that Rodriguez was getting a little bit frustrated not having a title shot at 108, certainly with Kiyoguchi, and I think Mr. Honda even talked about the other champions not willing to fight Rodriguez even in Japan. So hence, they've been patiently waiting on an opportunity, and it came just out of nowhere. And what was your reaction, first of all, Visual, when you heard the news?
First of all, yeah, it was no other than you who told me, who was telling me about that, not only once, but multiple times. We had a few little conversation on that subject, offline as well on a few of our episodes. So yeah, it was definitely that's definitely what was happening. Now, is your question in regards what was my reaction when I found out that Rodriguez will be fighting Cuadras?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, first of all, I was completely surprised because with my job and everything, I'm not following, and I broke my phone, so I'm not able to use Discord. So it caught me completely by surprise. It was on BDA that I heard Mr. BDA saying that Rodriguez is stepping in to fight Cuadras. So I was very surprised, but at the same time, not so surprised in a sense that we knew that his whole team has been saying that Rodriguez is willing to become not only a multiple weight class champion in the future, but that he can fluctuate in the weight. But yeah, it was definitely a huge step up. I didn't even know up till hearing from you now, what was the reason for Rangvisai stepping out of fight. But yeah, you can say I was surprised. After all, I was surprised, positively surprised, and I was very glad to see this fight.
Yeah, when you step in on 5 days' notice and move up 2 weights, the challenge a rugged and natural champion at the weight. Now that's some Manny Pacquiao shit.
Yeah.
Reminding me when Pacquiao first challenged Ledwaba for the IBF belt many years ago. That's what That's what these young killers do when they're fit, 365, ready, have a great deal of natural talent, and by virtue of the schooling, what Robert Garcia is doing over at his academy, with the sheer volume of talent that he has and the level of competition, sparring, and the fact that his brother is also a world champion who introduced him to boxing, because Rodriguez doesn't have a lengthy sort of amateur career, although he's very young at that sort of 22. So confidence and refreshing to see something that we do not see. It's almost become obsolete in boxing. All we hear now is all of these bitch ass tactics, just talk about money and insufficient time to train. So good to see. He was already due to fight on the undercard. It could have been a catch weight, flyweight 119, 110 bout, I presume. So it wasn't too detrimental for him. He could come in, rehydrated. I think Jesse walks around sort of 125, 130. So, it's not a bad weight. But given that both fighters were around sort of 5'4", I think Jesse's maybe half an inch taller than Cuadras, 5'4.5". I think both of them have around a 66-inch reach. Cuadras 33, Rodriguez 22. Cuadras having been the WBC champion, been in the ring with not only pound for pound level fighters, but Hall of Famers and all-time greats in Roman Gonzalez, and having fought Sarisakat as well, McWilliams Arroyo. A fantastic CV, always willing to get into the ring. It is arguable that he should also have been the WBC champion, having what Eddie Hearn, the clandestine operations that we spoke about, we did a video in the past that, Cuadras was maybe denied a victory in the third round, which was looking highly likely. So, but Cuadras, he's kind of an erratic character as well, official. I think, he's been in and out of rehabilitation as well, not only personal substances, but, alcohol, and erratic, and naturally a very talented fighter, looking to sort of come back, but he always delivers good, very good performances, especially when he's challenging champions. So we knew he was motivated for this fight. He was looking extremely confident in the build-up, and looked good on the scales, both of them. And I think the scene was set for what was going to be a magnificent fight.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yes, speaking of the difference in the weight in between them, I would still say, Jesse Rodriguez, he's someone who to me at the flyweight division, he was not much bigger than his opponents. At least he did not look much bigger to me in the flyweight division, but I would say he was on the bigger side, a bit bigger than his opponents. So yeah, just like you're saying, he's rehydrating a good 10, 15 pounds, but I would say that Cuadras is rehydrating even more, and the difference was especially visible in their upper bodies, especially in Cuadras, who who has a much bigger upper body and seems bigger to me, physically bigger. But speaking of Cuadras and what you said about him, couldn't say it any better. And in my opinion, I was always saying, I've been claiming for years that he's one of the most naturally confident fighter. In a sense, he always reminded me of kind of like Cassius Clay. He seems almost cocky in the ring, and that erraticness of his out from outside the ring, I would say it's also visible in the way he fights. Now he's out of his prime, and it's especially visible in his footwork, and uh, he loses some gas. I'll get into it later as this episode develops, as we get deeper into that fight. Uh, but but yeah, definitely, I would say he's on a downslide. But however, he's a fucking beast of a fighter, and has a huge heart. Nothing
Yeah,
but respect to him.
he he's like a gatekeeper, but the gate is like made out of platinum. A
Well
beast
said.
who can one of those guys who fights, to the level of competition. If it's a challenge, then he's going to be a beast, and the back acne unfortunately never leaves him. Hasn't done for many years.
Yes, sorry to cut you off, corruption, but
Yeah,
what I also wanted to add about that is that even despite he's on the downslide, you can clearly see, even when he's tired, fatigued, especially in the second half of his recent fights, he pushes through it like almost no one else. So that's you can see that his punches are losing steam, that they're getting easier to be seen by the opponent as the end of the fight approaches or in the second half of the fight. But even despite that, he's still he has an incredibly strong will. That's all I wanted to say. Please continue.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's always great watching him now. Now the fight itself, official. Now you delivered, you dropped your film studies, and you mentioned a lot about some of the limitations with Jesse still at a relatively sort of adolescent age, 22, inside fighting, and some of the problems that Razor was posing to him. Now, how would you cross reference what you saw in the fight with the film studies, the the qualities that he purveys in terms of his ability, certainly at mid range, his combination, his body punching, his level of IQ in the ring, and some of those deficiencies that you identified? Was Cuadras able to exploit them sufficiently, or at this stage of his career, he didn't really have the next level to do so? What did you see?
Um, I would say that in this fight, I saw Jesse Rodriguez, who was not much more, but more defensively aware, and he was really, he was not so willing to take as many risks as he was taking against some lesser opponents and smaller opponents. None of them who hits nearly as hard or throws as many punches as Cuadras. I
Yes.
would say that I saw some improvements, and that even when he was, for example, just one of the examples, and there are some other examples as well, but in his jab. This time he was not he was he couldn't allow himself to probe with his jab as much to to throw light jabs and then to drop his guard, his lead arm down. He was doing a much better job defending himself with his lead arm in that high guard than in the previous fights. But again, even during my breakdown videos, the two of them that I did this Saturday, I said a few times that I reminded everybody that those clips are over from 2 or 3 years ago, 1, 2 or 3 years ago, and that it's very possible that he could improve. But however, corruption at the same time, to be honest with you, I still saw the same problems. And wait to hear what I think about the fight after rewatching it. Maybe even you would completely disagree with me, but yeah, it's going to be so funny. But yeah, I still saw the same things. For for example, when before losing his team in the second half of the fight from the sixth, seventh round on, Cuadras, he was doing something that was very similar to, I would say, something that I was saying in my breakdown that would give problems to Rodriguez the same way that Reyes, one of his previous opponents, did it with high volume combinations and inside fighting, and I was still seeing the same things. No, now it's not to criticize Pam Rodriguez because he's a hell of a talent, but I mean, I still saw it's definitely something that is not his strongest point. On the other hand, I saw him landing. See, in my breakdown, I said that he doesn't throw very often punches from that chest to chest range, from that very short range, but he did it a couple of times, more than a few times, very effectively in this fight. And that could be seen as one of the improvements as well. Now, I'll let you speak, and I'll just give a big shout out to your friend and the friend of this channel, Michael Wilson. Go on.
See, with Rodriguez, it's like his genetic makeup now. When it comes to chest, I think the reason why he's not that effective, or the reason why he tends not to operate on that sort of range, is because he's a precision power puncher who punches through the target. It's clean punching, so he's not shoe shining. So therefore, at that sort of range, he's looking to inflict damage with every punch. So he's pretty economical, but you can see him snap. He'll generally land 3-punch combos. You'll see he'll do the lead uppercut. He'll come back sometimes with the right hook, then follow up with the left hand, but he'll tend to vary. You can come right hook. Now, what Cuadras was doing is that Cuadras has actually a weak jab. He's not stepping in with his jab. He's not throwing an authoritative jab, and I think that was one of the problems in this fight. So Rodriguez was able to block Cuadras' jab. But what Cuadras would do is that he'd fire a jab, whether it's a rangefinder, come back with the right hand. Now Jesse would try to counter Cuadras' right hand with his uppercut. Cuadras would sometimes block it and come back with his own left hand, and that was his most effective weapon. He would land it on the third punch. He'd land his own left uppercut or sometimes the left hand to the body, because Rodriguez was trying to counter on the second. But Cuadras from the outside, when he's looking to land that left jab, you can see there's no torque or arcing in his body. It's just a rangefinder. But then he's stepping in with the right hand. So Rodriguez could kind of see that, and he would block and parry gloves, the right hand with his gloves, sometimes the right hand to the body with his elbow. So he did it. His defense was reasonably on point.
Oh yeah.
But when he's firing combinations on the lead, Cuadras would have trouble defending them. And we saw in the third round, Cuadras firing a weak jab, blocked very easily by Rodriguez. Rodriguez coming back with his own jab, and Cuadras turning his head and dipping, allowing Rodriguez to come on the blind side, pivot to his right, turn his body left, turn his body sort of half screw, and then land an uppercut, short uppercut with his right hand. A beautiful punch, showing some of those exquisite sort of matrix-like foot movements does he have to come completely on the blind side. Cuadras not seeing it, and it's generally those punches that inflict, damage.
Corruption. You said so many great things in this 1 minute, or I don't know how long it lasted, but so many interesting things that I want to go through it one by one. But just quickly, Michael in the chat room is saying that something interesting, that Rodriguez, in his opinion, Rodriguez is probably not ready yet for Estrada. And I was kind of watching that fight. I was kind of thinking about how Estrada, who is on a downslide as well, he was able, to score much bigger punches to hurt Cuadras much more while getting hurt in the process as well. But yeah, it's something interesting that I would not be surprised if that's the case, but I will have to think about it to give my personal opinion. Now, the things that you said, fantastic. First of all, to go back to what you said about Rodriguez's kind of, let's say, lack of inside fighting at that shoulder to shoulder, chest to chest range. Yeah, so fucking spot on, because that's one of the things that I really saw in this fight. The punches that he was constantly landing from mid range, it was all about precision, punching through the target with speed, with quickness, with an excellent snap, really snapping punches.
Yes.
And while Cuadras, he was loading on almost every single punch of his combination, but those punches were thudding punches, but not as precise, not as accurate as Rodriguez's, and also they were wider, and he was often cocking them back before throwing them. So yeah, that was a really difference, really opposite of what Rodriguez was doing in this fight. And there were so many fucking clean head punches that were snapping Quadras' headband. Excuse me.
Both of these guys showed a magnificent chin, and I've got to give credit to the referee, because my God, were they digging to the body, and there was a hell of a lot of low blows. I don't think it started out as malicious like that, but they began to retaliate in disgust to the low blow. If Cuadras would throw one low, Rodriguez would come straight back and throw one low, or vice versa. And the referee kept separating them, telling them to keep it clean. And I'm glad he didn't deduct any points. It was give and take. I don't think there was, but they were really sickening body shots. Some of Rodriguez's uppercuts to the body, and even Cuadras was having a great deal of success with his wide sort of arcing left hand to the liver of Rodriguez. But Jesse showed a tremendous chin. It's talked about not having any sort of trouble in sparring or in his fights. Kind of looks robust, sturdy. Looks like he's definitely got a chin, but his defense was good for the most part. He didn't take too many combinations from Cuadras when they were exchanging. And this is what Cuadras does brilliantly. He changes the rhythm of his punches when he's countering. So he'll go from the free on the lead, and he'll go on the 2 and the 4, sometimes the 2 and the 3 on the inside. So when Rodriguez would be firing that, his straight left hand, Cuadras will come straight back in between the guard. When Rodriguez doesn't have a snug guard position, because Rodriguez would be looking to land his own right hand to Cuadras' body, but Cuadras would come back with his own right hand, sometimes straight left, straight through, in between, and landing flush. And it shows his abilities, his reactions, and his counter-punching ability at that sort of Tata mid-inside range when they're trading. That he's very good, and he was doing a lot of that with Gonzalez, and the way he set up Estrada for the knockdown with his uppercut left hook combination. He is so dangerous with that left hook he has, official, whether it's an uppercut, left hand to the body or left hand to the chin, is is a very underrated, debilitating punch.
Corruption, you've been landing so many clean, effective head blows throughout this whole episode. I mean,
You've been away
really.
2 months, man. I'm not gonna. It's not gonna be a premature ejaculation so quickly.
You had a fantastic training camp. Uh, so, bro, yeah, so true. I mean, first, both of them showed, yeah. So my last point about the Bam Rodriguez film study was his chin, and he has proven that he can take a hellacious uppercut upstairs or left hooks that you mentioned, and even straight rights upstairs or even Quadras's right hands to the body, delivered with the whole body weight behind it, and Quadras as well. And again, one more time, that's what impresses me about Quadras, when he's kind of spent, in the second half. Even despite that, he was taking also some fantastic uppercuts from Rodriguez throughout this fight, and straight lefts upstairs and to the body as well, just like Rodriguez. And man, hold on, I have so many things to say, and many of them you already mentioned. Well, look, when you were talking about how when you were describing just how Quadras was landing that left hand, the left hook on Rodriguez on the third punch, and Rodriguez countering with the second punch with the straight left. What Rodriguez was doing, it's very similar to what Lomachenko is doing. He kind of steps in with a very hard jab, instead of just throwing a setup light jab and stepping out, pulling back like he usually does. This time in this fight against Quadras, he was doing something different. He would step in with a jab and he would stay there. And when he steps in with a jab, it was a very hard Golovkin-like jab. Step in, intentionally stay there right after throwing the jab, because he wanted 1-2 combo from Quadras. So when Quadras tries to counter him with a jab of his own, he rolls it like Lomachenko, and as Quadras is cocking back that right uppercut or right overhand, he just dips and throws a straight left. And he was doing that many times, and he was confusing Quadras as well by sometimes throwing that straight left to the body, and many times upstairs. So that's also how he was confusing him. Now,
And
this
also,
fact, yeah, go on.
when Jesse steps back to counter, I think he's more effective like that. When he gets a little bit of distance
Oh
to
yeah,
evade
yeah,
a punch, stepping back, and then boom, that was
yeah.
working.
And yeah, but this time I saw that his jab was percentually, it was harder. He was throwing more harder jabs, more hard jabs than usual. That was one of the difference that I saw. But he was even throwing the setup jabs. That's exactly how he was able to knock him down in the third round, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, I would say the way to describe this fight was both of them trying to time each other, just the way you explained, and you beautifully explained Quadras's combinations. That's also how he dropped Estrada in the rematch. Man, he throws in his combo, in his 5-6 punch combo, he throws a flurry of right and left hook in the, in the normal, at the normal speed, and then he would wait a second, and he would throw punches, the following punches off beat, and that's how he was you know, catching Rodriguez a lot. And I would say at the beginning, especially in the first half of the fight, uh, he was doing also something that, oh, what's his name? Oh, bro, the guy Lopez, that he was doing well against Loma whenever Loma and Comey as well. You see Loma, not Loma, Comey and Lopez. What they were doing against Lomachenko is when he steps into their range, inside of their range, instead of throwing a single punch, they would open up immediately with the combo. Time Loma stepping in with the combo, and not only upstairs but downstairs. That way, they're when he's in their track, it's much harder for him, to set up his offense, and that was effective against Loma as well against Rodriguez when Cuadras was doing it. And I would say that he was still landing, being that his combinations from all the different angles were forcing Ben Rodriguez to have a tight, high, peekaboo guard, and that's when he would use the opportunity to land hooks to the body, but also many times as Rodriguez would feel his hooks to the body, he would open up his guard, and Cuadras snuck in many fantastic uppercuts.
See, great points, first of all. See, with Rodriguez now, given the confidence that he attained from the early stages and inflicting a knockdown in round 3, you could see the momentum was with him, tremendously confident. Then the middle rounds, as he was able to take and block a lot of Cuadras' punches as well, without not taking hard single punches, some combinations, but generally minimal. He was trying to walk Cuadras down. Now, when he was doing that, he's a little bit more stationary, but I see what he was trying to do. Because what Rodriguez does, and I think this was something we talked about in our first film study a couple of years ago, is that when Rodriguez walks somebody down, he likes to trap them up on the ropes. That's when you see a completely different jab. That's when his jab turns into an Usyk jab, like a Ronald Winky Wright type of lead hand jab, where he's probing around the guard, trying to push the snug guard down, try and create opening, tap, and then land to the body to try and inflict a knockdown. So I think that's what he was trying to do. A difficult task, given you're fighting somebody physically probably stronger, is definitely a lot bigger, hits comparably as hard, if not more of a sort of a thudding puncher, but definitely somebody who can hit hard. But Cuadras' combination punching, it didn't allow Jesse to actually gain the momentum and actually get him back on the ropes. He still had good energy and he was still dangerous. So I think that's where Robert Garcia was saying, look, don't try and push him back. Get back to some movements, because that's something Cuadras cannot handle. Get to the blind side, try and check him on the left position, come back with the right hand, because he's not seeing that each time. So I thought that was good advice.
Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And you can even make an argument that what you explained with him, or what he's doing with his jab when he has his opponent trapped on the ropes, kind of the same thing happened with the knockdown. Although it was not happening, it didn't take place on the ropes. It was in the middle of the ring, but the idea was the same. he threw a jab as Cuadras slipped to the side, and then used that to go around him and catch him with the uppercut. But corruption, I have two very maybe controversial things to say. Are you ready for that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so one that would be less controversial is that after rewatching this fight, because watching it live, I was half asleep. I barely woke up for the fight 30 seconds into the first round, and I spent the whole fight half asleep. Then rewatching it before doing the show with the volume off, I would say it's an extremely strong candidate for the fight of the year. And many people wouldn't even think that it was that close, but yeah, in my opinion, it looked close. Now, for sure, throughout the fight, I would say Jesse was the one who was landing much more, many more eye-catching punches, and he was fresher. In the last round, he was almost as fresh in the first round, which was not the case with Cuadras. But you know me, you know that I don't I don't care at all about how the fighters are moving around the ring or how are they looking, if they seem tired to me or not. Uh, Only I'm counting the number of punches being landed from both sides and the effectiveness, who is landing the better punches. Now, the better punches, the more eye-catching punches, I would say it was Rodriguez for sure. But in the second half of the fight, Cuadras lost even more of his snap, and I would say his punches were not maybe hurting Rodriguez as bad as it was the case in the first half. But to me, it was that close of a fight. Now, watching it live, I send you an email telling you that after just first 4 or 5 rounds, I was telling you, man, cannot stand these cocksuckers from the zone. I mean, I love Rodriguez, but they're acting like Cuadras is not landing anything at all. That was just the way they were talking about the fight, commentating it live. And but on the other hand, watching it live, I was still thinking, but at the same time, yeah, okay, Rodriguez is winning it, not comfortably, but it's visible that he's winning. But after rewatching the fight, man, I I would really like to make a punch count in the future, in a close future, because I would say it was such a close fight that I don't know. I'm not saying I was not scoring the fight at all. Uh, if I score it, if I rewatch it again in order to really score it, maybe I'll give it to Rodriguez. But I would say I would not be surprised if I even score it for Cuadras. But at the same time, yeah, it's true that Rodriguez was landing the better punches upstairs. But I would say at the same time, in many of those rounds, Cuadras was outlanding him by a lot. It's just that he was landing mostly to Rodriguez's body. And
Yeah.
I would even say I thought rewatching the fight with the volume off, the first 2 rounds I had them for Cuadras, for example. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about those controversial things.
No, I agree. It's Rodriguez is not a high volume puncher. So in terms of the ratio between activity and punches landed, his connect rate was better. And
Hmm.
given that he was landing the harder jab, which is effectively a quasi power punch, the way he was throwing it in this compared to Cuadras. So you deduct Cuadras' jab because his jab was just non-existent in terms of what he was doing in this fight and causing no damage. I don't think he was setting up punches from the lead. I think he was better when Rodriguez would open up. I think that he landed his better punches like that. So, a different sort of scenario. But Cuadras definitely had the volume and he maintained it and he was picking up rounds in the mid to late rounds when Jesse was becoming a little bit stationary and trying to push Cuadras back. Cuadras was definitely having success and his body shots were hurting Rodriguez clearly because you could see him back up a few times. But with Rodriguez as well, official, he'd never been past 8 rounds. So it was a new experience to be in that sort of a turbulent combat environment against a hard, determined puncher. And you got to give him credit for that. You
Absolutely.
can replay the scenario and have so much sparring, but when you're executing that main event, world championship, your maiden world championship, there is pressure. He must have known he had a sufficient lead as well, so no doubt. And he's getting tired and he's getting hurt a little bit. But you got to maintain your composure and think, let's not try and be too reckless. A knockout would be wonderful, but I think in the post-fight, he spoke about that he realized he wasn't going to knock Cuadras out, that he was tough. So that's good to see. Wise deductions from a young man and not making those mistakes that some fighters have done so in the past. Jermaine Taylor infamously a few times. It's about seeing out what you've done. And he came back in some of the championship rounds. I think he probably called his second, third win a little bit later. Cuadras was looking a little bit wary then in certainly 11 and 12. So I think on balance, it was around a 7-5 fight. And an extra point, certainly for the knockdown. Something, I think that's a reasonable, but Cuadras definitely won rounds. No doubt about it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So your what you just described, it goes along with one of the official scorecards, which was the 3 point difference from I forgot the name of the judge, but 2 other judges had it 117 to 110. It was, I mean, and again, I'm not saying maybe if I rewatch it and if I rewatch it in order to score it, maybe I score it for Rodriguez as well. But at the same time, I would not be surprised if I end up scoring it for Cuadras. To me, it was such a close fight, such a great fight.
All right. So it's going to be the Victor Conte snack diet and some film and some punch stack count for you.
Oh yeah.
But please, speaking of punch stat, has the transsexual lover Al Heyman released our punch stat account for Manny Pacquiao and Yordenis? That's a rhetorical question, but I thought I'll ask anyway.
Unfortunately, corruption, you haven't sent enough of Holland transsexual hookers on a plane for Al in order for him to allow us to have our video on, because they took it down 3 times.
Yeah, unfortunately, I tried to bribe the trannies, but they refused to get vaccinated, so they couldn't travel. So nothing I could do. They're all still held up at Amsterdam airport. Sorry, Al.
Oh.
Hopefully in time for your 65th birthday, I'll have a few surprises.
Yeah, but yeah, it's such a shame because, I mean, for real, that punch count for Ugas versus Pacquiao, I uploaded it, if not 4, then at least 3 times. and
Yeah.
each time they would allow it for a bit. Once I complained, I wrote a lengthy complaint to YouTube, and they allowed it back,
Yeah, it was
and
released.
then
Yeah. Yeah.
and about a few days later, maybe a week or two later, as it started gathering views, it was taken off one more time. But on the other hand, our punch count for Chocolatito Estrada rematch is doing very well, almost 1900 views by now, as the views are skyrocketing, I would say, at least for our channel, in comparison to our other videos. They're skyrocketing just as the fight is approaching.
The Pacquiao Yordenis Sugas films punch stat account won't be released until Ugas probably loses against Errol Spence, and
Yeah,
then they'll talk about him being significant overachiever, etc., and all the rest of that.
yeah,
The
but at
reason
the
his
same
value is
time,
lost.
yeah, absolutely, yeah, because they don't want to
They don't
anyone
want the
to.
truth. Yeah, they don't
Oh,
want. They don't want to. It's just we see it all of the time with boxing and the propaganda, the media machine, and the censoring and the
yeah, I
targeting.
mean, look just at what is happening. You have some divas like Haney, like many other people getting some shine. And okay, I mean, I get it. Um,
But
it's downfall, but
it
but
looked like Yordanis Ugas was certainly enjoying that Manny Pacquiao money, sitting there with diamonds in his sunglasses, his wife with a diamond chain and diamond this and diamond earring. What a punk motherfucker!
yeah, but it is what it is. I mean, just like you said, they don't
Yeah,
want to dirt up his name before he's
yeah,
fighting the A side, some A side that he's supposed to give his belt to.
yeah. Such a pity that Dr. Margaret Goodman wasn't allowed to collect his tests, working with Victor Conte.
Yeah, I mean, fucking amazing. But by the way, what else is there in boxing? I mean, from the fights and weight classes that both you and me enjoy, not that PBC freak show.
I don't know. The I mean, there were so many fights simultaneously. The PBC card, I wasn't able to see any of that, nor was I even remotely interested after Mario Barrios. The way he was diving around, premeditated dives against Tank Davis. As some people think it was some sort of
Corruption.
legit.
Really sorry to cut you off,
Yeah,
but speaking of him taking a dive, you remember the guy Rosario Banana who took a dive
yeah,
against
yeah.
Charlo? His next fight, right after that one, he took another dive. So he took two
Against
dives
Erickson,
in a row, bro.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but go on. Sorry for cutting you off.
But I had no interest. The great Cool Keith Thurman back after a 2 year layoff, still clinging to his hairline as his one time moniker. Um, he he looked like he had a body transformation, some sort of surgery to get rid of all of his cellulite and fat and whatever else and replace it with muscle. He looked ripped. I just saw the weigh in, a little bit of highlights here and there, but I think they're trying to keep Furman alive for the fight with Jaron Ennis. So there was no way he was going to lose this fight. Um,
Yeah, it was. I think. See, I missed that fight, but I tuned in when the fight was over. I saw a few seconds of them in the ring, and from what I remember, it was the first and only time in my life seeing Keith Thurman with the abs on his body. Yeah, but I bet even those abs would not save him from good body shots, especially at this point of his career. No, no, but I have to. How do you say it? I'm really disappointed with you hating on Keith Thurman because here at the Coup d'etat of boxing, I think we had some big Keith Thurman film studies on a hard drive, along with King Kong film study.
And don't forget my man Julius Mandingo. Now that one is deleted. That's in hyperspace somewhere. Not
Good.
even not even a CO5 Phoenix restoration tool would be able to bring that film study back.
Who
And
knows
speaking of Julius, I heard he survived. He didn't get knocked out on a UK Eddie Hearn card. He was fighting. I saw a little bit of it. The fighter he was fighting again was absolutely atrociously bad. Some Chris Jenkins or something. Couldn't even knock down Julius. Couldn't even do anything. So, but the main fight, Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. And what I can say about that is Chris Eubank Jr. is an absolute fucking disgrace. One of the worst performances I have seen. To come to Wales and put on a performance like that against a guy who had no chin, no defense, no alternate strategy, no variety, no versatility, one-dimensional game plan, but has heart and desire. He's only two redeeming qualities, and Eubank would just try and sit back, land a few snug sort of hooks and counters and jabs just to knock him down. He talked. The build-up was no doubt about it. They're trying to sell the fight, but there was a lot of animosity between them. Chris kept reiterating that he was so much the bigger and better fighter, etc. So why the fuck are you running away from him? Every time Liam would come in, you'd apply that overhand underarm double hook to try and neutralize him completely. Didn't even want to engage, didn't even try and engage. Now, if you're the bigger, heavier puncher, which you've inflicted early knockdowns, why don't you just go in, step in, get him on the inside, land your Sagat Tiger uppercuts and knock him out? Absolutely fuck all. And to run, and that was running what he was doing.
Yes.
It's not in his boxing stance. It's not the sweet science. The sweet science is what you see with Jesse Rodriguez. Whereas you've got fighters who are in the position to not only take punches, but they're in the position to slip, parry and block, which he does, dip, head movement, and then come back with explosive punches, then pivot out, reacquire the preferential angle, come back with his jab. That's the sweet science. What we see with Chris Eubank Jr. is some remnant of a 60-year-old Roy Jones. It was a fucking abomination, a total disgrace. A guy who showed nothing in his entire boxing career, and his father even alluded to that before. Really, as a gym rat, you'd think that he's had so much time to perfect his craft. He always talks about being in the gym and does his best to obviously release videos to remind us, but I think it's all bullshit anyway. I think half the time he's in the Brighton and Hove nightclub still with the WBO, with the WBF belt draped over his shoulder, which he picked up from a few years ago, driving around in his McLaren in Brighton. What's he learned over the years? I've seen nothing. He's been beaten. Groves and a green sort of Billy Joe Saunders. I think Matt Koroboff was probably going to school him as well. He was looking very sharp. Pulled out of the Golovkin fight, didn't want absolutely nothing to do with it, despite all of his remonstrations and complaints from him and his father. He's done nothing, achieved nothing. Had a good deal with the PBC to be fighting on a UK sort of cross PBC platform. That went. Now he's back on Sky Sports. Just given opportunity, but I don't know. Official. I think he's. I don't know. I just think.
Man, if I try my best to give somebody like him, like Eubank Jr. compliments, I would say that he's a physically gifted fighter. Yeah, he has a nice chin, speed and everything. But man, he doesn't even know how to incorporate it into his boxing. And at least a few years ago, his style was suiting him better. Right now, he's looking like some geriatric version of Roy Jones. It's a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of Roy Jones. A fucking terrible copy. These last few fights, he's been on the outside, running around the ring, trying trying his best to look like Roy Jones, even using his feints. I mean, he just gives the visual impression of Roy Jones without deserving to carry his speed bucket. I mean, Roy Jones at this age is probably a better boxer than he is. He's a fucking abomination, like you said, and it's so fucking terrible. Beside Cuadras versus Rodriguez, this was the only fight that I catch up on. I was watching it, but I was not really paying a close attention because both of them are fucking terrible in comparison to boxing of the highest order that we like to see, that we got with Cuadras versus Rodriguez. This was just a show for Brits to drink a couple of beers, sing Sweet Caroline, and have a nice time. But it was fucking boring to me. And yeah, I would even say he would be able, probably with his previous style, he would have been able to stop Williams, who everybody is saying that Williams has a hard chin, but I'm not seeing that. I'm much rather on your side. He doesn't have a chin. Once you land a precise punch on his chin, he's down. Now probably he has heart, does his best, but man, he doesn't have a lot to offer. And this fucking terrible copy of Roy Jones Jr. doesn't have to offer neither anything. And it was, I mean, after all these years, he still cannot handle a jab, a good jab. Man, I think that Williams didn't land the jabs that he didn't throw at him. Every fucking jab that he threw on him, it fucking landed. And
he was landing, and based on activity, I think Williams probably did better in the fight. But the problem with Williams is that he has a propensity of just walking into punches. It is
Yeah.
shocking. With Demetrius Andrade, he would just run around, turn around, step to the right because he knew Williams would step to the left, to his left, where he could land that double left right hand. But Andrade would just fire the uppercut, and Williams, even with a guard, not a snug guard, and it would just penetrate. He'd just walk into that punch, and with Chris just walking into his jab straight from the jump and being floored by a didn't even look like a very hard jab, almost like a little snug, and he goes down from that. I mean, what sort of chin is that?
Yeah.
Williams was a lot better when he used to fight at 154. He used to have actually very good footwork and foot speed, and he would be able to box a little bit on the back foot, pick his punches. But at 160, he fell in love with his power, getting consecutive knockouts, and then hence the same problem as we see with a lot of fighters fall in love with their power, and they're trying to walk down fighters, trap them and knock them out. And Frank Warren served him up with a whole lot of bums, boosted up
Yeah.
his ego. And we saw what happened with the Demetrius Andrade fight, although the referee didn't allow any inside fighting, and Andrade did a hell of a lot of running and smothering and wrestling and very dirty, disgusting fight. But the referee was
Yeah.
definitely the culprit. Didn't allow Williams to try and fight at the range he wanted. And Andre we know he can't fight on the inside at all. He's a shot fighter from what he was for at 154. But Andre did land some nice punches, piercing the guard. But Williams in the Chris Eubank fight, he recovered, but every 3 or 4 rounds he would get knocked down, and I think there was probably 3 legitimate knockdowns. I think the fourth was back of the head and some sort of a push down. It was absolutely bullshit. But apart from that, based on sort of activity and Eubank running second half of the fight and doing nothing, too scared to engage. That's what it was. Cowardice. People are paying a hell of a lot of money traveling from Brighton, whatever, to Wales. It's an expensive night out, and you pay and go and see that garbage.
Yeah.
Disgusting. I don't want to see Chris Eubank Jr. ever again in the boxing ring. Fuck that motherfucker.
Oh, hell no. I mean, yeah, and you were the first, you were the one who told me in the past about how Williams used to fight, that he was a bit of a better boxer at 154. And yeah, you described his fight against Andrade just perfectly. And yeah, the confidence that he got by knocking out a couple consecutive opponents. Just like you said it, he forgot that he scored those knockouts against nobodies. So he thought that he would be able to do the same thing against Andre and Chris Eubank Jr. I mean, the guy is 32, 33 years old. Stick that next gen moniker up your you know what, and go the hell away from boxing.
And speaking of Andrade, official, during the time we were away, he's how convenient that now he's got what looks to be a very good mandatory challenger in front of him, that he's deciding to
Excuse
vacate
me
his
for
belt.
cutting you off. I'm not sure. Can you just clear it for me? Are you talking about the most avoided fighter in the boxing?
Indeed, I am.
Oh,
I don't know.
please.
Has he officially vacated his 160 belt?
Oh man, man. I'm so glad that we've been doing this podcast.
So,
I mean, Man,
So it was
we've been
okay for him to fight Luke Keeler and this Irish boy who he fought in the last fight. So they were legitimate challenges, but this Kazakh southpaw, he wants absolutely nothing to do with whatsoever, and he wants to go up and try and fight. Now Canelo's already the sort of posturing they've had at 154 and 160. What makes you think that he's going to entertain a fight at 168 pounds, given that he already declined you at the altar at 154 and 160?
yeah.
It's, the boxing is just an abomination.
Unfortunately. I mean, look again. I'm so glad that that we have the how are people saying, we have the recipes on our channel with our pound for pound lists, with everything that we were saying after all these years. I mean, many months, couple of years behind us, and even on some other podcasts before this one that we created, we've been pretty much spot on with everything that we are saying. I mean, just so many hyped up fighters that are more or less very good fighters are being blown up out of proportions. Like, uh, the networks who are behind them treating them like they're the shit, like that Canelo is number one pound for pound, that Andre is the most ducked fighter in the world. Man, those clowns, and so are the clowns, all the
Bud
people
Crawford,
who were not listening to us.
yeah, Bud Crawford, Wilder, the Charlos, B-level garbage. I mean, our list has been proven to be probably the best list anywhere. Our list which we've had Usyk, Roman Gonzalez, Vasily, those sort of characters. Inui. It's been the best list, justified list. And, we were already talking about, Josh Taylor, all of these fighters we had very high. Myris Breeders, although now Myris Breeders, not only is he going to come off our pound for pound list, but for him getting a Jake Paul tattoo on his pussy lips, he's going to be swiftly ejected.
Oh yeah, man. What? It's a transfer. He's doing a transfer of shame to over to myself, because I'm feeling ashamed for him.
Official,
Just
he's
a
been
clown.
he's won the World Boxing Super Series. Are you telling me he never got a good payday for that? I think
Yeah.
Usyk must have got about 20 odd million for all of the victories that he achieved. Now he lost against Usyk one season, and then he won against Dorticos. Surely he would have made sufficient green fighting in Latvia as well. He doesn't need this payday against this fucking clown. Who the Jake Pauls, Logan, Jake Paul, their mother, should all be flown by their private helicopter and tossed into an active volcano, so you don't have to see or hear from any.
Along
I
with
must
Eddie
give
Hearn.
Logan Paul a little bit of credit because he beat the fuck out of Floyd Mayweather. Beat him up, no doubt about it. And don't tell me about an exhibition. Floyd was trying to lay him out, but got beaten up by a novice. So I'll give him a tiny remnant of credit. But apart from that, these guys have made money from sexual innuendo on eBay, on YouTube and whatever. Real low level gutter trash.
And
for
by
them now
filming the suicide victims in
coming to the
Japan.
boxing world and thinking that they can just pick and choose, washed up has-beens to try and increase their publicity, and now venture into boxing promotion. Get the fuck out of here.
Absolutely. That's why we are giving people the real deal. I mean,
Yeah.
what are we going to do next? I think that the next, and see, that's one thing, corruption, that I mentioned. I don't know if you caught it. That I said on the Pam Rodriguez film study. I said that I love doing film studies for the fighters that we both like, but at the same time, the reason I hate doing it is that I'm really trying to do a really thorough job, to explain even all their weaknesses, and that's the reason why I prefer in some way talking about the fighters, or doing the film studies on the fighters that I dislike. But even despite that, I must finish our film study on Junto Nakatani. I started doing it on my previous PC that is dead now. Luckily enough, I had it saved on a hard drive, external hard drive, so people can expect in a, I would say, short future, a show about Junto Nakatani. That is going to be some good shit.
And official, we also had the mighty Clarissa Shields fighting in the UK on the Chris Eubank card. Now, a woman who claims to be the all-time great, but I did some checking, and there are only 48 registered professional fighters at middleweight and super middleweight, for which she has won
Pound for pound, though.
undisputed championships. Official, you would find more fighting ladies at your local supermarket than there are in professional boxing.
Especially in the one that I used to work at in the past.
Yeah. And then for Clarissa to come out and say, I'm better than Vasily and all of this, making some of these. I mean, what portion of your payday went to James Ali Bashir, who you and your disgusting sort of family sucker punched and left with a sort of an irrevocable brain injury? Did you even visit him in hospital after the way your brother sucker punched him, which no doubt was orchestrated by, Clarissa, just a disgusting hood rat.
Yeah. Can't say it any better.
Fuck that bitch. And going on to, can you believe, official, the publicity that this joke of a fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano is getting? Serrano is even getting a reported $1 million, something that Roman Gonzalez had to almost
had to
over
beg
a
for
decade.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. That fight is absolutely getting no. Why don't you go and look at Serrano's 7 weight divisions where she's won championships? I bet there'll be a combined number of about 80 boxers worldwide fighting in all of those 7 weight classes, and you're trying to tell me that fight takes precedence over a fight like Roman Gonzalez and Julio Cesar Martinez.
Corruption. Listen to me. Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez fought and beat more Hall of Famers than there are female fighters in their weight class.
It's
in
just
the whole world.
Oh man,
I mean,
disgusts me now. And no doubt, there's a change of demographics. It's a new sport. It's going to take decades. That's even if it survives that long. The way boxing is imploding, given the systemic and widespread level of corruption, who knows what's going to happen in the future? Whether there is going to be an overarching sort of regulatory body that urgently needs to be implemented to take the rein away from the sanctioning bodies. And the state athletic commissions, which don't exist, they are just shell corporations. And I've talked about that for years. If you just look at their financials and their corporate records, it's just empty vessels designed to almost give the general public some sort of confidence that there is structure and oversight in place, but there really isn't. You might get one guy writing a manual and just sort of disseminating it, but there is nothing. So what's going to happen, we don't know, but it's going to take time. Women's boxing is going to take a great deal of time, but the way they're hyping it up, and it's like an asset bubble in the housing market. It is just completely fraudulent, not based on any sort of evidence, fact,
Or
being
merit.
pragmatic, being realistic, but just misinformation and disinformation. That's what really pisses me off. And you look at some of the real bad matchmaking, fighters getting knocked out. I remember that Estrada fight as well.
Yeah.
Her knocking out somebody in the first round, against a total novice who shouldn't have been in the ring. You can't be elevating the sport on the backhand of having. Estrada is a talented fighter, and I've spoke about her in the past, but that's no way to lay the foundation for a sport. You've got to have matchmaking. If there's something you've got to learn from male boxing, is that maybe we can minimize the number of injuries and deaths we're having and potential brain damage in the future. If on the one hand we're only doing 2-minute rounds and head guards, but at the same time we are undermining that by these absolutely ridiculous matchups.
Yeah. And look, corruption, I already told you this once. As someone who's really studying boxing and who always who was always thinking about getting the opportunity to train fighters someday, I would say that female boxing, it's kind of interesting to me in that sense that I would find it as a very interesting challenge, and I would think that that being that the ladies are not very powerful when it comes to their punching power, that many of their fights are ending by decision without any knockdowns, knockouts. I would say that skills and the improvement a trainer would make with the female fighter, in my opinion, it can be interesting, when you find a dedicated female fighter who would try to learn the skills. In that sense, it would be interesting. If I was a coach, I would love the opportunity to, for example, train a female fighter. But as a boxing fan, just only as a fan who's looking to forward to seeing boxing of the highest level, of the highest order on TV, and that's exactly why you and me, we love watching the super flyweights, and many other extremely underrated weight classes, instead of some hyped up weight classes full of hype jobs and overrated fighters and divas. Um,
Yeah.
I really cannot stand just the way they're pushing female boxing onto us. I mean, first of all, they're crying about their payday. Uh, they're not putting enough asses in the seats or anything to deserve that money. While you have the flyweights, super flyweights, who are fucking extremely popular and are making money for the networks and the promoters, but are getting severely underpaid in comparison to females. But what gets on my nerves even more is that they're forcing them upon us as co-main events. That is just I don't have any patience, any I don't have any understanding for that. It's fucking frustrating.
Just look back to your point. Just look at the co-main event of the DAZN card. You had Jamie Mitchell, who sounds like a bloke, up against some Carly Skelly. Fuck no, I don't even know. But that was the DAZN. Whereas you had given that Rodriguez was stepping up from flyweight, you had a superb flyweight fight. Lorenzo and the other guy, I can't remember their names, but it was a terrific fight. That should have been the co-main event. Yeah, I understand that. Jamie Mitchell is a champion. Credit to her. She's elevated her life out of real poverty and etc. So I give her tremendous credit for that. But the woman she fought against had absolutely no boxing skills whatsoever. Somebody who only took up boxing like a year ago or something, I heard, had no business in that boxing ring, whatever. And that was the co-main event.
Yeah. It tells you everything you need to know, and it especially happens on the zone cards and the cards that have something to do with Eddie Hearn. I mean,
yeah, the satanic devil Eddie Hearn.
Yeah,
that's it. The way they're promoting Katie Taylor. My God, this is a woman who should have 3 legitimate defeats on her record.
Oh
One of the
yeah,
most protected fighters. Disgusting. I hope Serrano knocks her out viciously as well.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Can't forget those 2 fights against. I think was it a Norwegian girl or some
Delphine
Scandinavian girl?
Pierson. She was
Up
from our territory over here in Belgium.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. I mean, both times she clearly outlanded her, outworked her, landed much better punches, and somehow it's fucking disgusting how she got both of those victories. The second time, Pearson was like, yeah, whatever. I already knew that.
Pierson was injured. She'd just gone to the Olympic trials. Was ill, injuries. That's when they decided to rematch, not straight away. So we see that all the time. Trying to exploit an advantage from the adversity of your opponents. So typical Eddie Hearn, and maybe he's doing the same with the Roman Gonzalez. And I want to know why Juan Francisco Estrada is not participating in this bout. And don't give me some illness nonsense. I think it's something to do with the fact that the registration or the re-registration for the clean boxing program was due to take place, and Estrada bizarrely decided not to go through and pull out of the fight. I think something is definitely up. I don't buy this convenient excuse we're hearing all the time. I think COVID was designed in the laboratory by boxing promoters because they use it beautifully.
Yeah.
And Eddie Hearn is a master of that. The way he did it with Povetkin and laughing and joking over the fact that he weaponized and fucked him up. And we've seen the way he's done it against other fighters. And but the Rey Martinez steps in the ring now. Now, officially, I've got mixed emotions on that because I was kind of hoping that Joshua Franco Rodriguez would get his opportunity. Because Gonzalez should still be the WBA champion, because and pretty much the entire world agrees that, Gonzalez won the fight against Estrada both times and should be the unified WBC, WBA super flyweight world champion. And Franco was the WBA regular champion. So I think Joshua Franco should have been elevated to fight Gonzalez. I think that would have been a perfect fight. But the fight's not for the championship, so you can understand what's going on. But Rey Martinez is moving up from flyweight. I think he's not vacating his WBC flyweight. A tremendous fighter, but he's also from that juiced up Canelo gym. Tough, rugged. It's gonna be a barn burner type of fight.
Oh, it will be a fantastic fight for sure. And I haven't thought about what could happen in the fight, but because he has that kind of incredible explosiveness and agility that is going to make this fight wow, amazing fight. But yeah, just like you said, just like you mentioned, your concerns about the way that Juan Francisco Estrada was pulled out of this fight. I had pretty much the same feeling, corruption, because I was very confused. You just can you just have to be suspicious when this is happening, especially when you're already seeing the same patterns from the same promoters, and when you know that stylistically Roman Gonzalez is a nightmare for Estrada. I mean, Estrada, hell of a fighter, and somewhere around now it's to decide on some of the future episodes if he would be in our top 10, but he's, in my opinion, still somewhere around there, at least very close to top 10 pound for pound, and extremely talented fighter. But man, Gonzalez for sure is a nightmare, stylistic nightmare for him. And I was even worried. You remember how both of us reacted after the rematch? We were so disappointed that, and I'm still kind of feeling the same way. I was like, even although I was excited about the third fight, rubber match in between them, I was like thinking at the same time, man, what's the use of the rubber match when they're probably going to rub Chocolatito again?
Yeah,
Because many times as boxing fans uh, made the same mistake of thinking that, well, if an obvious robbery already happened in a previous fight, then the promoters cannot allow it to happen one more time in the rematch, to have again the very same blatant robbery. And it was not a close fight, which our punch count, without any doubts, showed everybody. So I don't know. I was so pessimistic about that rubber match, and at the same time, I was thinking, man, you don't know what can happen. Maybe the rubber in the rematch demotivated Gonzalez. Maybe this time he gets knocked out for real, or I don't know, or really loses the fight. And then everybody starts saying, you see, Estrada is a better fighter, but no.
but the problem with this fight, official, is that it's not really a win-win situation for Gonzalez. It would have been better if Martinez's WBC belt was in contention, even if the fight was at 112. Gonzalez definitely deserves some reward or some sort of incentive to fight Martinez, because at 115, from my understanding, there's no belt on the line. So the only thing that can happen to Gonzalez is he's going to be worn down by yet another very difficult fighter against a young killer who can fight. He has
The,
severe limitations, but he's a beast. There's no doubt
the,
about it, of a fighter.
eh, Excuse me for cutting you off again, but that's another thing that I was thinking about as well. I mean, if I was also thinking maybe they pulled Estrada in order for well, maybe Eddie was trying to use the same recipe that was being used on Pacquiao to get some go through some more mileage, get some more mileage
Yeah,
by fighting an extremely explosive and fucking offensively extremely talented fighter, very hard hitting, even despite
yeah,
him being from a weight class below, but extremely hard hitting, extremely agile and explosive, with a very high work rate. I was thinking maybe they pulled Estrada out of it in order to make him fight Chocolatito after
Soften him
fighting.
up, soften him up
Yeah.
significantly. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, in fact, you even mentioned it in our post-fight show after the rematch.
yeah, yeah. It's some Canelo Golovkin shit with Canelo's bitch ass procrastination tactics. That's why with Gonzalez, I was hoping that Tekken Promotions would have made the Ioka fight in Japan. I think Mr. Honda was even talking about that, with Jesse Rodriguez actually fighting Kiyoguchi on the undercard. That would have just been that would have been the best card of the year.
Oh yeah.
Once the Jervin and Kajas fight was scuppered, I was hoping that, and I think that because you could see the mutual respect that even Ioka has for Gonzalez. He talked about both fights with Estrada, and that Gonzalez his style and is just a better fighter, and he won both fights. And that is the matchup that certainly fans of flyweight and super flyweight have been hoping for a number of years. Would have been either a Gonzalez and an Inoue, but I have always wanted the Gonzalez and Ioka fight, given that both of them came up from minimum weight and became 4-weight world champions at super flyweight. And that would have been all, even Gonzalez and Adoni Nietes at a super flyweight, given that all three of them are, 4-weight world champions. So that would have been fitting, given the long journey that we followed them, and finally have a super sort of dream fight. Albeit at a sort of veteran stage, but it doesn't matter. You still would have loved to have seen it, and whether it transpired in Japan or the States, I think it would have been better for me, it would have been better in Japan. And I think
Oh yeah.
Gonzalez would have no obligations in fighting in Japan as well. Had a great deal of success there, and I think he speaks the language even a little bit. Not as fluent as Linares, but he can speak the language. So I'm not sure whether we're ever going to get that fight, or what's going to happen with the Reyes Martinez fight. But it's still a fight definitely worth looking forward to. And during the interim, Estrada should be forced to fight Joshua Franco before
yeah.
he fights the winner of Gonzalez and Martinez. And what Martinez, it's quite interesting given that we've got Jesse Rodriguez there as well. Whether he stays there, but I think it would be better if Rodriguez went back down to 108. I still want to see him and Elvin Soto, or him and Kiyoguchi. That's been the fight they've talked about it. And given that Kiyoguchi started fighting over, in the United States on the Reynoso, I think that was going to be a logical fight in the future.
Yeah, same for me, corruption. I mean, it would be much better for him before bulking up and moving up to 115 and staying there for many years. Before that, it would be lovely to see him trying to conquer the lower weight classes, if not 108, at least 112. At least the flyweight division, and there are some very good matchups there for him. And if I'm not wrong, I think a couple of months ago, I'm not sure, but I think, was it him? He was kind of supposed to fight Sonny Edwards, or who was? I cannot remember, but Sonny Edwards was supposed, or maybe Ray Martinez. Maybe I'm confusing him with Ray Martinez. Can't remember. But yeah, I would much more prefer for Jesse to fight at 112 and then move up after fighting all the best people that are there at 112. And you mentioned, you just said that you would love to see Estrada versus his brother Franco. Now, I haven't thought about it, but at this point, who would you pick in between them? I would say probably Franco. I mean,
You asked me that same question privately months ago, and I said I'd fancy Franco to beat him.
yeah. That's right. We spoke after him beating Maloney, and man, that was a fucking fantastic performance. And man, those two brothers, they're the best duo of brothers in whole boxing without any doubt.
Yeah, Robert Garcia's got something working quite well over at his academy. Certainly with them two, helps being at the same weight. You can imagine the amount of sparring and interaction there is between the two, because they both of them are relatively new to boxing. You know, Jesse having got into the sport from his brother, so still very inexperienced fighters but they're just getting better, and they've got an aptitude, and you can see improvements in every performance, and that's what you want, a linear representation of their channel, of their talents, combined with the level of opposition, and whether they can go to the next level. And it clearly looks like that they do have that, but we'll see. Politics is going to come into it. You know, Joshua, even despite being a champion, I don't think he quite has the sort of reputation and the talk and that Jesse Rodriguez has, who's viewed as a better talent. But Joshua Franco is a terrific fighter as well, so I wouldn't sleep on him. Maybe not as naturally talented as his younger brother, but still a terrific fighter. But we'll see what happens. But on that
Yeah,
note, official, any other fights?
uh, no, I'll check. I'll check the schedule. Just give me a minute, and I'll go
Because
through.
I'm on a time constraint. I have to shut off.
Oh, okay. Then hold on. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know what fights is next,
What's
but
next week? I know the cards are starting to pick up now. I just can't think on top of my head who's fighting.
hold on. I'm already googling it. Boxing schedule.
Does anybody know in the chat? Any more of these terrific PVC cards?
Hold on. I'm there. Let's see. Oh, fucking waiting for this to open. Boxing schedule. Key dates. Josh Taylor fighting Catterall on the 26th of February. Another nice fight is Jose Ramirez versus Pedraza, the 4th of March.
Okay.
Then also, okay, then later in April, Valdez. What the fuck is happening? Valdez is fighting Shakur, and your favorite female fighter, Katie Taylor Serrano. Hold on, let me see the other fights. I'm going.
Can you believe, man? Jake Paul is her promoter, mate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. What else is there? Rupisi Ramirez is back against some guy, Eric Donovan. Gary Antoine Russell is fighting Victor Pastal on the 26th of February. It's going to be interesting. But I'm expecting Antoine to win. Okol is fighting Cieslak. Let me go to another website.
You can put Katie Taylor and Lawrence Okolie in the same bracket for me.
Yeah,
Trash.
yeah. Um,
I wouldn't even buy a Big Mac meal from Lawrence if he was still working at McDonald's.
Chris Colbert fighting some guy.
My man,
Well,
Chris
the fifth.
Vanilla Sherbet Colbert.
Yeah. Oh yeah, on the 5th of March, yeah, Chocolatito versus Martinez. Sonny Edwards. Oh, hold on. The 19th of March, Sonny Edwards is fighting Muhammad Wasim.
Ah,
I-
that's a good
I-
fight.
That's a
And
good fight.
then he's got Ricardo Sandoval waiting. You know the fighter who I spoke a long time ago about.
Yeah,
The
yeah, he
Golden Boy
fought on the
fighter.
undercard. On the other card of I don't remember which fight it was, but it was a nice fight. Then still the same day, the 19th of March,
Hmm.
Yabuki versus Teraji. I think it's the rematch, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
Then the same day, a rematch of Charlo Castaño. Then the 26th of March, Kiko Martinez Warrington.
Ah, that. I mean, how the fuck has Josh Warrington got a world title fight after getting knocked out with Lara, and then in the rematch
Headbutting.
he extricated from that bout. He was on the verge of getting knocked out.
Yeah,
Kid
fucking
Galahad
shameful.
loses to Kiko, and Josh Warrington gets the title. It's the benefits of having Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, yeah, the same culprit. Jorge Linares is fighting Abdullah on the 19th of February. But the next week is next Saturday, a big fight in between Jacobs and Ryder. Man,
Okay.
it's a fight of has-beens
I like
against a
John
never
Ryder.
been.
John Ryder is the unsung hero who should have many a victory
Yeah,
snatched away from the clutches of politics and A side.
no, for sure. That fight against Callum Smith, for sure.
Billy Joe Saunders. Go and watch the Billy Joe Saunders and John Ryder fight.
Oh, I haven't seen that one, or
Yeah.
maybe I forgot. But 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 the fight that he had right after that against the Canadian guy, forgot the name of him. He was looking fucking terrible. It was on the zone the last year, couple of months ago.
John Ryder even got robbed against your man Rocky Balboa Fielding.
Yeah, I think you told me about that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but anyways,
Daniel
those are
Jacobs is all about money accumulation. He became as legacy wise, he became content after the Golovkin loss. And after that, there was no process of skills acquisition. It was securing paydays and just relying on his natural boxing talent to somehow get him through fights. But there was nothing more than that. It was like a ghost in the boxing ring subsequently. And Canelo couldn't even do fuck all with him. That was just one of the worst fights going. And we saw what Gabe Rosado did against Jacobs. Whether he's going to have any motivation, he'll get a good payday, and maybe he'll be content with that.
yeah.
I just hope. I just hope if it goes to the scorecards, you know, that there's some semblance of
Justice.
justice and some sort of impartial scorecards at least. But I think Ryder is just going to be unfortunately a scapegoat once again.
Yeah, because unfortunately we are living in a world in which there is a website called Boxrec, and on their pound for pound list that I'm watching right now, people like Chris Eubank Jr. are at the 7th place. Keith Thurman, 88, Callum Smith, number 9 pound for pound. I mean,
Chris Eubank Jr. is 7th on.
yeah. I'm
This
shocked.
motherfucker should be 777.
Yeah. I mean, we should dedicate a special episode to their pound for pound list. It's something else.
I mean, official. The last time I logged into BoxRec was like 4 years ago. So I just do it to understand results that have happened or a forthcoming fight or which weight category something's at, but no more than that. I don't pay attention to the ranking system. I do look at the volume of fighters within a certain region or weight category, looking at that's important statistics. But apart from that, that's where you
Yeah.
can see the how stacked a division is. It gives you some indication of that. But apart from that, it's a tool for the new millennial boxing fans.
Oh yeah.
Just look at,
I mean, I have an account and I'm always logged on a BoxRec, but it is because when I'm logged in, I can click on the event and see the whole card, all the fights on the card, and it's
exactly.
very useful when we're watching the fights live. But that's all.
On that note, just want to thank everybody who joined us for the third show in quick succession. That's a Kudetara boxing record. We'll try and maintain some sort of regular consistency, but thank you for your patience and to all those that joined us and for the comments as well. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys, and hopefully see you very soon.
Sayonara.
Oh, hold on, I forgot to stop the stream. I clicked on exit studio instead of end broadcast.